Hi guys, and welcome to the Is It Worth It for the Pz.Kpfw.38H, forgive my German, 38H735F. For the rest of this review, I'm just going to be calling this the Pz.38H, because it's far easier for someone as illiterate as me to pronounce. So, the Pz.38H is one of the rarest tanks in the game. It has been available in the gift shop in the past, not recently, but it has been available, and it's usually a little bit pricey, but it is one of the rarest tanks in the game. This tank was originally available when you purchased the original DVD box set of World of Tanks, and that's where I managed to get mine. They are still floating around on eBay and Amazon now and again, but other than that, you've got to wait for it to appear in the gift shop. So, yeah, I enjoy driving this tank simply because it is so rare, but there are some downsides, and that's what we're going to be talking about in this review. So, a little bit about this tank. Well, it is a German Tier 2 Light Premium. But it's not a German tank, it's another French tank. It's a captured French tank, which is actually a Hotchkiss. There were a few variants of this tank. There were about 3,000 in total at the beginning of World War II, most of which were captured in 1940 by the Germans and repurposed. But you can still find it in the French tech tree. And as I normally compare like for like across the board, here we've got all our Tier 2 light tanks. The Pz.38H plays more like a heavy and is available in-game if you don't want to spend money on it. It is right here. We'll look at the tech tree, we go to France, and there we go, the H35. The H35 is the Pz.38H. Just a slightly different variant of it. According to this, it was a cavalry support tank developed in 1934. Mass production was launched in 1935. 400 of these vehicles were manufactured, so this is the earlier variant. In 1938, a new modification, the H38, which in other words the Pz.38H entered production. So this is a slightly later version of the in-game H35 for the French. The H35 fully upgraded is still not as good as the Pz.38H. Even though it's the same tank, the Pz.38H is a later variant of it, and even fully upgraded, the Pz.38H is better in almost every way. The only real negative is that the Pz.38H is slightly less gun depression. We compare them directly, and they have the same number of hit points. The Pz.38H weighs a little bit more fully stocked. The engine power is the same as the stock version of the H35, but its speed limit is higher. So even though you can upgrade the engine and you end up getting more engine power in the H35, the top speed on the Pz.38H is still better at 37. However, it is slow to accelerate. This top speed only exists going downhill. Going uphill, this thing is a nightmare. It is very slow to accelerate. Even though it has a decent top speed, it is a very slow tank, and a lot of what I'm going to be saying in this video is pretty much repeating what I said in the Valentine 2 review that I did recently. Because it's a slow tank, it can get you into trouble. So like all slow tanks, the Pz.38H struggles when it comes to keeping up with an aggressive team. It struggles if your team or the enemy team advance down one flank and you happen to be on the other. It can't maneuver across the battlefield in order to make a difference, and it also struggles at endgame. So we're just going to play this on normal speed at the beginning, and then we'll speed it up. We're here on Malinovka. It's an all Tier 2 game. And we are going to attempt to go up the hill. And we're doing a whole 12 kilometers an hour. And we're hitting a slight rise. And we're down to 8 kilometers an hour. Now, this is not a steep slope. But yeah, we cannot get... Look how fast the rest of my team are advancing up the hill. I am so far behind them. And I'm never going to catch them. So, I'm relegated to a sniping role. So, my team are on top of the hill already. And we've only just started. We're doing 9 kilometers an hour up here. And at this point I figure there's no point in going up the hill anymore. Let's just snipe. And that's something that you find yourself relegated to in this tank quite a lot. You just cannot keep up with your teammates. So no point in going up the hill. Let's just sit at the back and snipe. And I'm going to speed it up here. So we're on ×4. Some targets here I'm shooting, but I'm not actually able to hit them. So again, now we're doing our full speed. We got a run down the hill. We're doing up to 37 kilometers an hour. And I'm at the forefront. I'm doing 37 kilometers an hour, and I'm at the front of my team. But look how fast they pass me by. So, slowing it back down slightly. So, game is over. My team are completely advancing ahead of me. And this tank is just not fast enough to keep up. So, I wasn't fast enough to keep up at the beginning of the game and get in amongst the action. I just had to fire a few shots sniping-wise. And at the end of the game, I'm just not fast enough to keep up with my team. The traverse speed is faster at 40 degrees per second. This tank can actually turn pretty quickly. The turret traverse speed is 47, so you do not run into problems with lower tier tanks out-turning you and circling you to death. The armor is pretty much identical to the H35. It is 40 millimeters all round. The armor is exceptional. This tank was originally known as the Mini Mouse or Micro Mouse because when it was first introduced, that 40 millimeters of armor all around was practically impenetrable to any of the other tier 2 tanks in the game. However, this is where this tank falls down. With the introduction of tank destroyers, with the introduction of tanks like the Tetrarch, the T-38, the pretty much any tank with penetration, the tier 2 British tanks, most tanks can penetrate you. Most tanks can hurt you. And experienced drivers driving against this thing will know about the weak spots. And even though this thing can seem impenetrable against some tanks, there are weak spots. And the main weak spot is, if you can see this flat area here, the viewport and the driver's compartment. It is fairly flat, and that is a weak spot. And that can get you killed very, very, very quickly. So that is a major weak spot if anyone knows what they're doing and they're shooting at this tank. The turret ring is slightly visible all round, from the front, from the sides, from the back. The turret ring is also a major, major weak spot. And again, if you've got an autoloader or something with a machine gun that can manage to get shots into your turret ring, they can kill you extremely quickly, and not because of the hit points, for a reason I will mention later. So this thing does have weak spots. Its armor is not fantastic, and even if you look at the rear of the tank, it is flat. It is flat pretty much all over. Anything with penetration will pen you. This tank will see tier 3s, you will see tier 2s and tier 3s. When this tank goes up against tier 3s, most tier 3s are going to have absolutely no problems penning you. Even tier 1s can pen you. most tier 1s firing premium ammo will pen you, and some of them don't even need premium ammo. So the reputation this tank has of being the micro mouse, I'm afraid, is long, long, long in the past. This tank can still do well. This tank can still be a troll. I'm regretting not taking this tank out for a spin during the release of the T7 combat car or the Light Mark 6C, because those tanks would simply be unable to pen this tank at all. They would not have been able to hurt it at all. But I didn't. I refrained from trolling. But taking this into normal matchmaking, the armor just is not there anymore. So here we are on Himmelsdorf, and this is one of the best scenarios for the Pz.Kpfw.38H. It is a city map. It is not a very big map, and it means I can get into the action very, very quickly, and the speed isn't as much of an issue. Looking at the enemy team, there are so many light 6Cs on the enemy team, along with a T7 combat car. I am looking forward to this game. So here we go. So we're on ×1, we'll go to ×2 till we get into position, and my plan is to go down the 8 line and just annihilate everything in front of me. So here we are, and a T18. So that's one tank I don't want to meet, but he's there. So we've got an orange reticule. We're going to have major problems penning the T18 from the front. So let's just advance. And oh no. Okay, I've advanced across the road, but an H-35, the 2 tanks on the enemy team I did not want to meet, are now in front of me. So I'm having to switch to premium rounds because my standard rounds will not go through the H-35 or the T-18. I've just bounced an H-35 shot. Let's go to work on the T-18. And now we've got a British TD. So all the tanks I did not want to meet are here. And I'm firing premium. Now I don't need premium against the British TD, but he's penned me. I'm already on premium and I've kind of forgotten. So we go to work. So he penned me. Now we've got to go up and work on the H-35 and the T-18. So all the tanks I did not want to meet are here. We've just bounced the H-35 again. So the armor is still pretty good. T-18 reverses. There's a Chini. H-35 pens me. And I'm bouncing the Chini. I'm side scraping and I'm angled. And I'm bouncing. And now I've got 2 tanks. I've got an M2 Light and a Panzer 35T coming in from my side, but I'm fairly safe. They should have problems penning me. So I'm still bouncing from the front, and I'm bouncing the Pz.Kpfw.38T or 35T. So I'm ignoring him, and I'm still focused on the tanks in front of me. But, unfortunately, the Pz.Kpfw.38T has figured out that he needs to fire just below my hull, lower hull, and he is now penning me. And there we go. So he aimed for weak spots, and he finally found one. And unfortunately, that is what you run into in this tank now. H-35 managed to put one through my driver's hatch. The British TD had no problems penning me from the front, and the Pz.Kpfw.35T, although initially bouncing, ended up finding the weak spot. Again, the driver's hatch in front, he hit me in the side, and that is it for this tank. So I bounced a lot of shots, but I was also penned quite a lot, and that's the story with the micro mouse these days. The view range and the signal range are excellent. They are absolutely superb, especially for Tier 2. I have enhanced mine with binocs, but 330 view range at tier 2 is very, very good, and 525 signal range is exceptional at tier 2. So this thing can engage tanks at a distance. You can snipe with this tank, you can engage a lot of tanks at a distance, and as I say, because the armor doesn't hold up anymore, not the way it used to, when you get into higher tier games, sometimes it might be best to use this not as a heavy tank and on the front line, but as a support tank and sniping from the back, because the view range and the signal range will allow that. It also means that it is a viable scout. So again, like the Valentine 2 review we did recently, you can scout in it, but it is a light tank that plays like a heavy tank. It is slow, and it's situational. So if you can get into a scouting position and your speed lets you get there, then you can scout, but the opportunities are few and far between. So let's talk about the gun. The gun on this tank, the Pz.Kpfw.38H, is a tier 1 gun, but that does not matter. The gun on the Pz.Kpfw.38H is better in every single way than the final gun on the H35. The H35 does have a selection of 4 guns, however, every single one of them is inferior to the 37mm L34 on the Pz.Kpfw.38H. The final gun on the H35 is the SA38, and they are both 37mm, but as you can see, even though it's a full tier lower, the L34 has a better rate of fire, it has more penetration, same alpha damage, it has more accuracy, it has a faster aiming time, and it is just better. So the gun on the Pz.Kpfw.38H is great, but it is not fantastic, and the reason is it only has 41mm of penetration. 41mm of penetration is fine for most of the tier 2 and tier 1 tanks you will be facing. However, against some tier 2s, for example the H35 or the T18, T18s can tear this tank apart. You just don't have enough penetration. Going up against tier 3s, which this tank does frequently, you don't have enough penetration, so the gun is lacking. Also, the alpha damage is quite low at 40. Again, not so much an issue when you're going up against tier 1s and 2s, but definitely an issue when you're going up against tier 3s. But even with premium ammo, the 64 mils of penetration on the premium ammo is fine against tier 2s, can work quite well against tier 3s, but not all of them, and that is something that can get you into trouble. It also means because you are in a tank that really needs to fire premium ammo against some tanks of its own tier, or pretty much most tanks of a higher tier, your profit margins are not going to be very, very high when you drive this tank. So this is not a tank you're going to be driving for profit, all down to that gun. So let's give this gun a workout. We are here on Mines. It is a tier 2 game, and we're just going to go up on double speed till we get into position. So remember, we got very, very good aim time at 1.7 seconds, and we have decent penetration against a lot of enemy tanks. So there's a couple of tanks around here that have no problems penning me. T-26 is one of them, so let's prioritize the danger tanks. So look at that rate of fire, look at the aim time. T-18 prioritizing again. Have to switch to some premium ammo because I can't hurt a T-18 from the front with standard ammo. And there we go. So I'm ignoring the light 6Cs in front of me. I've switched back to normal rounds. So next main danger is the Chini. So let's go to work on him first. So standard ammo, no problems penning him, and he's bouncing. and someone else takes him out. So I know that there are some light 6Cs in front of me. I know that they can't pen me, so let's just pop out, ignore them, and kill them. So look at that aim time, and I take a hit from RT. So yeah, RT can hurt you. So he's dead, and then I notice that we've got tanks behind us, so I switch. Go for a quick shot on the cruiser. Again, when you come up against tanks you don't need to use premium ammo against. It's a great little gun. My biggest issue with it is you have to use premium ammo. So there's still 2 tanks over here. I'm going to ignore RT, go down and see if we can kill these 2 tanks. There's the light C. Oh, just miss a kill shot on him. So let's go hunt him down. Do I have a shot on the T2 medium? Nope, dies before it can get there. Oh, T7 combat car. Sit in the open, no problems. So again, decent aim time. Great rate of fire. And we track him. And there we go. So just the light 6C left. We pre-aim. Shot goes low. And there we go. So the gun is pretty good, especially against same tier tanks, and you really need to fire premium if you're going to be coming up against T18s. If you can prioritize the tanks that can hurt you and leave the tanks that don't or can't hurt you, you can have some pretty good games in this. So we're going to take a quick look at the crew layout, and yes, we only have 2 crew members, and that gets you into trouble for something I hinted at earlier. This tank does have weak spots. You do have your driver's compartment and you do have your turret ring, which are exposed and can be hit. Therefore, crew members can die very, very quickly in this tank, and this is one of the few tanks I've had where I die in literally 1 or 2 seconds with most of my hit points still remaining. I have come up against autoloaders firing gold, and even though they had trouble penning the driver's hatch, only 2 shots penned in a 1 burst. I only took about 20 damage to my tank. I still had 140 hit points left, but I was dead because they killed both crew members. So putting a shot through the driver's hatch is going to kill the driver, the commander takes over, and then the next shot from the autoloader kills the commander, leaving your tank with no crew in the space of a second. Likewise, they can aim for the turret ring and it will take out your commander and then your driver very, very quickly. So you can often die in this tank while most of your hit points are still remaining, and it is annoying when it happens, but thankfully it is quite rare. But like I say, only 2 crew members. This does not make a good crew trainer. It is a German light tank, so what are you going to be training German light tanks crews for? Well, there aren't that many really, really good German light tanks later on up the line. I mean, the VK2801 is, it's okay, but there are better scouts, and the Aufpanther is okay, but there are much, much, much better high-tier scouts. So, they weren't keepers for me, and I really don't know why you would want to be training up a crew in this tank for them. Even training up a crew for another tank of another class, maybe a medium or a heavy, only 2 crew members just don't make it viable. We'll take a look at the equipment, and we do have some decent view range and we do have some signal range. So I have opted for vents, a camo net, and binocs, but let's see what else is available. Not much. So let's start at the top. Toolbox. A toolbox is a viable option for this tank. It is slow, it plays like a heavy, but it's low tier and it doesn't have that many hit points. So while a toolbox is always nice, I think you would die fairly quickly, especially when you've got TDs and tier 3 tanks shooting at you. It's just too expensive a piece of equipment to warrant using it on a PZ38H. The enhanced gun laying drive, 10% aiming speed. Again, better aiming speed is always good, but this tank has a 1.7 aiming speed. It doesn't need a gun laying drive. Coated optics are an option as well, 10% view range up to a range of 500 meters, but this is quite a slow tank. So it's viable, but you've got decent view range for your tier. You've got very, very good range for your tier. Coated optics would make it better, but so do binocs. So, and because sometimes you've got to use this tank as a sniper, especially when you get into higher tier games, yeah, I opted for the binocs, but coated optics are a viable choice. Binocs we've already discussed. This is a light tank. It does have camo rating on the move. I had a spare camo net anyway, and I figured, why not just go for the extra camo for when I'm stationary? Again, because you do get into higher tier games frequently in this tank, and you do end up having to play a support role. A camo net is quite nice, and with that very, very fast turret traverse speed, you do not need to remove your camo rating when turning your turret to keep a tank in target. Light spall liner, again, complete waste of money on a light tank, especially when you consider some tanks, for example a T-18, can one hit kill you. Not worth it. Not enough hit points and not enough armor anymore. And then vents, again, every single one of my tanks that can fit vents has vents. 5% to all crew skills is just too good to turn down. Okay, it is that time again where I am going to show you a game that sums up all the strengths and weaknesses of whatever tank I'm reviewing in one replay. And here we are on Himmelsdorf, and it is an encounter battle, and it is thankfully just a tier 2 game, but we are going to be going up the hill while a lot of my team rush down. I wish our T-18s were going uphill, but nope, never mind. Okay, so we are doing a whole 8 kilometers uphill. Yeah, I think we're going to speed this up, so I'm kind of looking around to figure out who's coming up the hill with me. Gonna put it on ×2, and we're still going painfully slow. 8 kilometers all the way up here, getting down to 7, getting down to 6. Lots of enemy tanks ahead of us, and tanks are dying long before we can even get there. So we finally reach the top of the hill. We're just rolling, rolling, rolling. Not seeing anything that's of too much of a danger to me yet. The TD I was going to prioritize is dead, so we'll pop around the corner. And we're going to ignore that tank down there. He can't pen me. And we just roll around the corner and go to work. So we just keep rolling forward again. Nothing too scary down there. I'll just ignore them. And we roll forward. We use our rapid rate of fire and our quick aim time. We finish that guy off. Unfortunately, we're missing shots on the move. So again, a little bit more damage. He dies before I can finish him off. But, oh, hang on. T-18. So immediately, I've got to switch to premium. Can't hurt the T-18. So, our T-18 dies, but continue to work on the T-18. Even managed to bounce a couple of premium shots. And we just continue working. So, missing my shots, unfortunately. So there's an H-35 and a T-18 here. I'm staying on the premium ammo. 2 tanks I'm going to have problems penning with normal ammo. So we're just going to work on his driver's hatch. So he's bouncing. And I'm not. So there we go. All the enemy tanks dead, and now I'm going to get some speed. We are rolling downhill, and we've reached our top speed of between 37 kilometers an hour up to 40. And only 2 enemy tanks left, and this is the other problem with the tank. even though I'm going downhill and I'm doing 37 kilometers an hour, I am never ever going to reach these enemy tanks in time to clean up. The game is going to be over before I can get to the last enemy tanks. So he's been spotted, and there we go. So, slow engine speed can keep you out of a fight at the beginning, it can keep you out of the fight at the end, but the gun is pretty good if you are willing to fire premium ammo against the tanks that you come up against and can't pen with standard ammo. Okay, so is the Pz.Kpfw.38H worth it? Well, it's got pretty good armor. It used to be a lot better, but it's got pretty good armor. You can side scrape, you can bounce a lot of lower tier tanks, but a lot of lower tier tanks have absolutely no problems penning you. Even tier 1s can pen you. And this tank gets into tier 3 games all the time. There was a period of playing this tank where even though I was a tier 2 tank, I was at the top tier. I was top tier in tier 3 games. That's how good this tank once was. The matchmaker has been adjusted, but the armor is good, it's just not as good as it used to be, and even though this thing is known as the micro mouse or the mini mouse, don't listen to all the old war stories of this thing going into a match and getting 12, 13, 14 kills. Yes, it is possible, but very, very unlikely these days. So, and on top of that, with the addition of premium ammo for credits and not gold, there are a lot more tier 1 and 2 drivers driving around firing gold, so your armor really doesn't hold up that much anymore. You can side scrape, you can angle, but just don't rely on your armor. It is better than the in-game version, the French H35, in every single way. It has really, really good accuracy. It has, the gun is fantastic on this tank. It is much, much better than the H35s. It has really, really good view range. It has really, really, really good signal range. It turns really well. Its traverse speed is very, very good. Its turret traverse speed is very, very good. So there are a lot of positives for this tank. But like that, there are a lot of negatives. We are slow, and that causes problems when you are moving around the battlefield. A battle could be fought on one flank, and you just do not have the speed to get over there. Even though, quite frequently, you're one of the last tanks standing on your team, you just do not have the speed to go and clear up what's left of the enemy before your team do. So you miss a lot of opportunities for extra damage and extra kills. It has low penetration, even though the gun is fantastic. Depending on the tanks on the enemy team, the low penetration does hurt you. If you get it into tier 3 games, which is about 60-70% of the time, you are going to struggle with the penetration against tier 3s. You do end up firing a lot of premium ammo, and that means that you don't make very much profit, and it is not a profit maker. The armor is very, very flat, so while good, it is flat, and that means that HE can hurt you far, far more. It means that you have far less chance of bouncing shots. It only has a 2-man crew, so it is not a crew trainer. But in addition to that, because you only have a 2-man crew, and its weak spots are both weak spots where crew members are sitting right behind them, you can get your crew wiped out before you actually lose all the hit points on your tank. Also, because you only have 2 crew members, if the commander gets knocked out, this thing is a stationary bunker just by losing your commander. Remember, your commander is also your gunner, and your radio operator, and your loader. So when the commander dies in this tank basically stops performing, and it's horrible. Believe me, it is horrible. However, this tank is rare. It can be incredibly troll, and as a tank collector, you're probably going to want to get this tank. However, like the Valentine 2, this tank is situational. The armor can be very, very good, but it's situational. It depends on what tanks are on the enemy team. The gun can be very, very good, but it's situational. It depends on what tanks are on the enemy team. The speed is not very, very good, so you are dependent on the map. It is situational. If you get a nice city map, you can have a fantastic game. If you get a big open map, then this tank can be a nightmare. If a map has a lot of hills, you will really struggle on rough terrain and hills. So, is this tank worth it? Guys, it's fun. It can be fun, but not every time. And while you can have epic games in it, the opportunities for epic games are very rare. No guys, not worth it. I don't think so. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.